Welcome back, and now to the news in detail. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says a peace deal between Washington and the Taliban is expected to be signed on 29th of February. In a statement, Pompeo said the two sides have been engaged in the talks to facilitate a political settlement to the Afghan conflict. He said the move will reduce the U.S. presence in the region. The Taliban have also confirmed the signing of the deal on 29th February. In a tweet, a Taliban spokesperson, Sohail Shaheen, said the agreement will end the foreign occupation in the country. According to the Afghan National Security Council, the violence reduction period will start tonight. It said the government hopes the plan would open the way for a ceasefire and intra-Afghan talks. The Taliban have previously refused to speak directly to the Afghan government, which they denounced as a U.S. puppet. The plan was set by the U.S. and the Taliban as a precondition to signing a peace deal. Pakistan's Foreign Office says the agreement will pave the way for intra-Afghan negotiations. It expressed hope that all the parties would now seize the opportunity and work out a comprehensive political settlement for lasting peace in Afghanistan. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has asked France and Germany to provide support in ending a humanitarian crisis in Syria. In a phone call with French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Angela Merkel, Erdogan said attacks in Idlib must be stopped. A humanitarian crisis has unfolded in Idlib as the Russian-backed Syrian forces presses on with an offensive in the region. The assault has forced nearly 1 million people to flee their homes. Turkey says it is determined to prevent a fresh influx of the displaced people, adding to the 3.6 million Syrian refugees it already hosts. A Kremlin spokesman said the possibility of holding a summit on Syria is under discussion. In Syria, the brutal war in Idlib has forced tens of thousands of people to flee the region. 3 million people are cornered in an ever-shrinking enclave. Half of them are children who are mentally inflicted. Their life is boiled down to bombs and fears. More in this report.
The Syrian regime has launched an offensive in Idlib to take back the final rebel-held bastion. Turkish-backed opposition groups are retaliating to take back locations the government forces have captured. The fight has forced millions of people to flee the war zone. People are not sure where they will go next, as the sounds of jets and bombing are making children sick.
All this displacement is because of the war and the bombing. You hear the sound of the bombing. This isn't our first displacement or our second. There have been many displacements. And every time I say, God, please make things easier, things get worse, and there is more fear. The kids, God Almighty, they aren't running. They hear the sound of the warplanes and they say, God help me. And they hear the sound of shelling and they say, God help me. God rid us of this misfortune.
In some areas of Idlib and Aleppo province, temperatures have dropped down to -7°C, killing several children.
I have a daughter. Her name is Ines, and she is 10 years old. She gets scared and can't focus when she hears the sound of a warplane or shelling. She gets really worried. Listen, and there's the bombardment right in front of your eyes. Look, there's no mercy for the old or the young. God rid us of this misfortune.
Displaced Syrians are sheltering in a camp near the Turkish border. They are cornered in an ever-shrinking enclave.
We suffered a lot on the road because displacement was difficult, and there are problems. We want the whole world to see us and learn about our conditions, the children and these camps. It is really a difficult situation, and when you see it, you can learn rather than just hear about it.
The UN has called for a ceasefire to help tackle what it has warned could become the worst humanitarian disaster.
France, Germany and Russia have called for the adversaries in Libya's civil war to keep to a ceasefire agreement. French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Angela Merkel held a joint phone call with the Russian President Vladimir Putin. The Kremlin said the leaders agreed to resume political dialogue in the framework of the Berlin Conference on Libya. The North African country has suffered political chaos and civil war since the overthrow and the killing of dictator Muammar Gaddafi in 2011. In Sudan, 53 protesters have been injured in the capital Khartoum after clashes erupted between the police and the demonstrators. The health ministry said that many women and children were among those injured. This comes as thousands of protesters marched in Khartoum, calling for restructuring the National Army and returning the recently dismissed officers. On Tuesday, the head of the Sovereign Council and of the Army, Lieutenant General Abdul Fattah al-Burhan, dismissed dozens of army officers. The protesters say many of the dismissed officers are being punished for showing solidarity with the anti-Bashir protests. Moving on to Iran, where the election authorities have extended voting for 2 hours in the parliamentary elections. Over 7,000 candidates are contesting 290 seats across 31 provinces. The 290 members parliament represents the country's 207 electoral districts. Nearly 58 million people are eligible to vote. The country's Guardian Council said they expect a 50% voter turnout. Some prominent pro-reform politicians and activists have called for the elections to be boycotted. Iran's Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, was the first one to cast the vote. Voters will also choose replacements for 7 deceased members of the Assembly of Experts. It is a clerical body responsible for appointing the Supreme Leader. Moving on to China, where 118 people have died in the last 24 hours from the new coronavirus outbreak, bringing the death toll to 2,236. The National Health Commission says 889 more people have tested positive for the infection, increasing the total number to over 75,000. Meanwhile, Iran has confirmed 4 deaths among 13 new cases of coronavirus in the country during the last 2 days. More in this report.
People in China are becoming hopeful with a decline in the number of new coronavirus infections. The World Health Organization says a continued slide of new cases in the country is encouraging. The global health body says it's time to fight the COVID-19 virus while it is still manageable.
This is the time to attack the virus while it is actually manageable, small number of cases in the rest of the world. If we don't hit hard now using the window of opportunity, we might face with a serious problem.
After South Korea's first fatality from the virus, the government is deploying its military medical staff and providing temporary isolation facilities. South Korea's Prime Minister Chung Seo-kyun says he's listing 2 cities as special care zones.
The government will take special measures by designating the Daegu and Cheongdo areas as special care zones, as a sudden hike in the number of the confirmed cases have been reported from there.
Regional leaders have pledged to pool resources to overcome the problems caused by the outbreak.
Saudi Arabia says it has shot down several ballistic missiles fired by Yemen's Houthi rebels at civilian areas in the kingdom. In a statement, coalition spokesperson Colonel Turki al-Maliki said the projectiles were fired from the Yemeni capital Sana'a. Al-Maliki said the coalition will continue using decisive measures to protect the civilians from such attacks. He said the attack was a violation of international humanitarian law. The Houthis have not claimed the responsibility for the attack. Yemen has been beset by violence and chaos since 2014, when the rebels overran much of the country, including the capital Sana'a. Ireland's Prime Minister Leo Varadkar has resigned after his party, Fine Gael, conceded a defeat in the general election. Varadkar will remain an interim PM while the country's 3 main parties work through the coalition talks to appoint a successor. The session of Parliament's lower house was adjourned till March the 5th after it failed to elect a new premier. No party secured a majority in the February 8th election. Sinn Féin leader Mary Lou MacDonald received the most votes with the approval of 45 members. 80 votes are needed of the 160 seats to be elected Ireland's Prime Minister. The country's main opposition party, Fianna Fáil, is now the largest party in the parliament on 38 seats. A 70-year-old prayer leader has been stabbed inside a London mosque in an apparent Islamophobic attack. Police said the suspect has been arrested and a probe is underway. Police said the prayer leader was treated by the paramedics before being taken to the hospital. Officials say they have increased patrols around the area to provide reassurance to the worshippers and the locals. An eyewitness said the attacker was restrained by the worshippers.
Imam, yeah. We start to pray fast. We don't know what's going on. We said, why you pray fast? And then we heard, oh, wow, screaming. Mu'addin was screaming. And then we see the blood, the knife was shoulders.
Prime Minister Boris Johnson said he was deeply saddened by the stabbing and his thoughts are with the victim and all those affected. Now moving on to Spain, where thousands of farmers have marched on the streets of southern city of Murcia against low food prices and precarious working conditions. Farmers blocked the streets with tractors and spread vegetables on the ground in protest. Spain's UPA union said average farm earnings dropped by 9% in 2019 amid declining food prices and higher production costs. Farmers demanded the government take urgent remedial actions. Agriculture Minister Luis Planas says Spain will fight to maintain subsidies as close as possible to the current levels. Similar demonstrations have sprung up around the country over the past month. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has arrived in Oman for high-level talks with the country's leadership. He will also pay respects to the family of Sultan Qaboos bin Said, who died last month. In a statement, the U.S. State Department said Pompeo will meet Oman's leader, Sultan Haytham bin Tariq Al Said, in Muscat. Earlier, he visited Saudi Arabia for talks on regional security and Iran. During his visit, Pompeo met with the King Salman and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Welcome back. The U.S. agency in charge of secure communication for the White House has been hit by a cyber attack. The U.S. Department of Defense says computer systems controlled by the Defense Information Systems Agency have been hacked. The breach exposed the personal data of 200,000 people. Officials say the department's networks are under attack each day, but it maintains an active posture to thwart them. In a statement, the cyber agency DISA said it has begun notifying everyone that has been affected. It said there is no evidence of their information being misused. The agency oversees military communications, including calls for the US President Donald Trump. It also is responsible for military cybersecurity and sets up communication networks in the combat zones. Bolivia's Supreme Electoral Tribunal has disqualified former President Evo Morales from running for the Senate in May's general election. Morales has been exiled in Argentina since resigning as president. Head of the Supreme Electoral Tribunal, Salvador Romero, said Morales does not meet residency requirements. Responding in a tweet, Morales said the decision is a blow to democracy. Romero said all the qualifying candidates must continue their campaigns.
The Supreme Electoral Court invites all plaintiffs to contribute to a smooth development of the campaign. The election on May 3rd is crucial for the democratic future of Bolivia.
Bolivia's new presidential and parliamentary elections are scheduled for May the 3rd. Now moving on, the UN Migration Agency says a boat carrying 90 people was set out from Libya has gone missing in the Mediterranean. This comes amid criticism of a lack of European Union rescue missions in the Mediterranean Sea. A crisis hotline, alarm phone, passed the SOS signals to Italian, Maltese and Libyan Coast Guard officials. The Libyan Coast Guard took 5 hours to respond to the urgent request and said it dispatched 2 ships to search for the missing vessel. Alarm phone lost contact with the boat over 2 hours later when it heard people panicking, saying the engine had failed. They said migrants were slipping into the sea as water flooded the sinking vessel. In Jordan, a small village has found a way to recycle trash it produces. And on the top of it, the project is being run successfully with the help of local women. The initiative is helping not only the climate of the village, but also making women self-sustaining through the sale of the trash. More in this report.
Jordan generates 3 million tons of solid waste per year. But according to the United Nations Development Programme, the country recycles only 7% of its trash. The UNDP has initiated a program to clean the stingy environment of the village and to make the local women self-supporting. Since its launch, the project has repurposed over 100 tons of waste and making the local women self-reliant.
I like the project since it started the solid waste management idea. For us older women who were at home with nothing to do, this project was a good place to work. It improved our financial status and also gave us an opportunity to do something as opposed to sitting at home all day. Why shouldn't we work? So we are doing it, thank God, and all our neighbors are helping out. Our children and husbands also sort trash, and it is great.
After collection, the trash is taken to a warehouse for sorting and compressing. The women receive a cash incentive of around $300 a month from the UNDP. Residents and store owners have also started supporting the cause. Now, they want to help the women out as well.
Every morning we gather the boxes we no longer use. We put them on a shelf and prepared them so that the women pick them up. They helped us out a lot because we no longer have to pile up the trash in front of the store. They helped us out, and we are also happy that the women are benefiting.
The environmental impact is clear. Residents say the village is cleaner and safer for children to play.
I'm one of the residents of this area. I live nearby. Before this project, in the evenings when they would bring the trash here, the smell was unbearable. No one could go outside or sit indoors because of the smell coming out of this place. Over the past 2 years since this project started, a massive change happened. This has turned from a trash dump into a garden. There's no smell. Even the residents notice that there's no smell coming from here.
Authorities have also launched a national solid waste management training program in the country.
In the US, new Baby Yoda toys from Walt Disney's hit TV show The Mandalorian are set to reach the shelves in March. The company announced the launch after seeing high demand and success in the 2019 holiday shopping season. More in this report.
A range of cuddly, frog-eating, Baby Yoda talking toys have been unveiled just in time for the 2020 Toy Fair in New York City. The Disney character, originally called The Child, is the breakout star of Star Wars spin-off show The Mandalorian.
This character known as The Child was immediately a hit, and what we're excited about today is to roll out products related to The Child for the very first time.
Fans have clamoured for toys and merchandise since the show's debut in November. The new toys include a range of Baby Yoda bikes, water bottles and baseball caps, and most winning of all, a slow-blinking, ear-wiggling Baby Yoda doll.
I'm particularly excited about these little guys. They're called bouncy collectible figures, and what they do is they take key scenes from the show.
The Mandalorian's second season is marked for release in October. Product pre-sales began last year, while customers are expected to receive their orders soon.
The airline industry is expected to lose nearly $30 billion of revenue this year from the coronavirus outbreak. The International Air Transport Association says demand for air travel will fall for the first time in more than a decade. IATA says the airlines in the Asia-Pacific region could lose nearly $28 billion of revenue this year. In a statement, the global airline industry body said companies outside Asia stand to lose revenue of $1.5 billion. IATA said 2003 SARS virus was responsible for a 5% fall in demand for air travel in the Asia-Pacific region. The Wall Street stocks have dropped after the number of new coronavirus cases escalated, fueling worries over the global economic slowdown. The coronavirus fears have stalled the U.S. business activity in the manufacturing and services sector. Drop in the shares of Microsoft and Chevron led the Dow Jones lower. The S&P 500 index was pressured by a drop in the tech sector. Facebook, Amazon, Google, Apparent, Alphabet, and Apple dragged down the Nasdaq Composite. Another weather situation from around the globe. That's all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus News.